Hey everyone, welcome to What's on My Bookshelf. This is your host Vandana. So, yeah, it's been such a long time, right? I couldn't make any videos for the last couple of months. I think the last video that I uploaded was my October wrap up, or maybe my November wrap up. I wanted to upload another video where I was reading Harry Potter and I wanted to give my thoughts on those books. Unfortunately, I did not have the time to read those books. I could only read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I didn't get the time to read any more than that. But I must say I enjoyed that book and I am hoping to continue to read that. It's just I'm not had the time to give my attention to those books again. But it was nice reading those books after 20 years. It was really, I almost was transported back to my childhood and I enjoyed that. The good news was that the book is as good as it was when I read it the first time, and I could read it faster. I think I took a long time to finish that first book when I was like 11, 12 years old, but today, I mean, now I was able to read it pretty fairly quickly. Like, I think I took only 2 days to finish that book, or three maximum. I would say three is my the time that I take to finish books. So yeah. Also, happy New Year, happy 2023. I have made a new journal for myself. This is the book that I'm using, the journal that I'm using, and I started making them towards the end of October, I think, and by December I was done with it. It has it's both a planner and a reading journal together. So I felt I could put them both in the same book. But maybe next year I will try to keep both of them apart. I don't know, but I'll try. One of my goals for this year, one of my reading goals for this year is to read 52 books in 2023, which means one book a week. But I have jumped the gun, so to say, and have read actually 14 to 15 books so far as of February 23rd or 22nd. Today is 22nd. As of the time I'm making this video, I have actually read 14 to 15 books, which is a high number for me because last year my goal was to read 40 books, 30 to 40 books. That was my goal, and I completed around 37 to 38 books if I'm not mistaken, and I was very happy. But now I have actually finished half of those books that I finished last year in just 2 months of this year. So I'm like thinking, what was I doing last year? Why did I take such a long time to finish reading so many books? But then I was on a big reading slump. I was not reading a lot of books in 2020. In fact, I read hardly anything in 2020, and I was just coming back to reading in 2021. It was only by the end of 2021 I started reading, and even then I was just reading at my leisure. I was not like I have to read these many books in a month. By only June 2022 I started reading a certain amount of books a month, and by that time I was uh, active on my bookstagram again, which is what's on my bookshelf. That is my Instagram account, and I've been active on it again. So this year I decided of reading around 52 books, which I'm not so sure if I'll complete, which sounds hilarious because I've already finished 15 books. But you never know. I'm reading at a slow pace. I'm not pressurizing myself to finish any books, even though at times I feel like, why have not read anything? Why have I not read anything? It does feel like that. But it's not possible for me to read so fast as other people can actually. Some people finish around 100 books a year, and I'm like, how? How? Especially the books that I read are very high fantasy, epic fantasies, and they require a lot of time to read. And this year I'm focusing more on reading those kind of books, epic fantasies. But every time I read a fantasy book, I feel like reading my other genre, my preference of genre, which is thriller, because I feel like they are so fast and you can just quickly finish reading them, and it has a cozy feeling to that genre also. So I'm always confused between these two genres. Every time I read the one, I feel like reading the other one, so it's really a confusing thing. But anyways, so the books that I read, I wanted to talk to you about the books that I read in January of 2023, I read A Magic Steeped in Poison, The Night Swim, Pride and Prejudice. So yeah, that is the other thing. I am doing the 12 books by 12 friends in 12 months challenge this year, and I'm also doing 12 classics in 12 months challenge this year. So one of the books that I read for the 12 classics in 12 months challenge was Pride and Prejudice. It's the first time I'm giving any major classics a read. I did study some of it in English in high school, and but I never really bothered to give any attention to these classics because I was not a big fan of reading in those times, except for really good books like Harry Potter and all, or Famous Five. But I never bothered to read classics. And even now, the only reason I'm giving it a try is because I just feel like, I see them all around Instagram, and I just feel like I'm missing out on something. At least I should give it a try. And so that's why I decided to do this challenge of reading at least one classic a month. So last month, January, I read Pride and Prejudice. And then the book I read was Dragon Spell. So that is part 4 of part 4 of the Devery Cycle series. Again, if you have followed my vlogs before, I have mentioned I'm reading the Devery Cycle series, which is around 16 books. They are divided in 4 parts or 4 acts, and each act I think has around 4 books. And I finished Act 1, which consisted of Dagger Spell, Dawn Spell, Dark Spell, and Dragon Spell. So last month I finished Act 1 of my Devery Cycle series, and I was not sure if I will be continuing it because the arc of the main protagonist in those books are complete in a way, and I was not sure if I'll continue it, but I think I want to continue because there are some characters whose story is not over yet, and I would love to see where it goes. But I have not decided to read them anytime soon. I will probably be reading it by the second half of this year. Maybe by July or something I'll pick it up. If you have not read those books, you should definitely read them. They are by Catherine Kerr, and really good books if you like epic fantasies. Okay, the next book is The Bridge Kingdom. Now that was my Readers Retreat book of the month. It was voted on by the members, and I really did not expect to like it. I had not even heard of it until it won the poll. So I was like, what book is this? But when I read it, I was really blown away. I loved the romance, I loved the world building, I loved the magic, fantasy, everything in it. It was nice. It was a good read. Then I read Cruel Prince. Now this has been on my TBR for a really long time. It was one of my Bookstagram made me buy it books that I had bought around 3 or 4 years ago. And at that time I had bought both the books, The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King. And I did not read it. Especially the first time I read it, I was bored. I was like, what am I reading? And I just kept it aside. And I was dreading the fact that maybe I'll never read it and I'll just wasted my money on buying something I may not read again. Thankfully, I picked it up again last month in January. And it was also another book club's book of the month. I think it was the Fiction Addiction book club book of the month. And it was nice. I read it and I finished it in 5 days because I read multiple books at a time. I don't read just one book at a time. So I cannot read one book at a time either, because unless and until it hooks me in so badly that I just can't stop reading it, I will be reading multiple books at a time. So I took 5 days to finish. I started on a Monday and I finished it on a Friday. So I enjoyed it. I really liked the book. I was glad that I read it, and I'm looking forward to reading The Wicked King, which I will be reading next month in March. The next book I read was What Lies Between Us. Again, another book club pick. Chloe's Reading Corner or something like that. She's a booktuber, and I'd heard of her Discord book club. And I was like, let's give it a try. But I did not enjoy this book. It was very predictable for me, and the characters did not leave any impression on me. I was not happy with it. I gave it only 2 stars, though it's well written, thankfully. And yeah, these are the 7 books that I read this last month in January. A Magic Steeped in Poison, I bought it in 2022. Yeah, I bought it then, and it has been with me for around 7 months, 8 months before I decided to read it last month. I read it because I was participating in the TBR Jar Readathon, and the prompt was a colorful cover, and I chose that book. I enjoyed it. I loved them. I enjoyed the magic system based on teas. But the protagonist could have been better. She felt a little stereotypical for me. I did not really enjoy her. But it was nice. The love story also felt a little caricaturish. I thought it was like given at this point of time that in these kind of fantasy novels, YA adult, I mean YA fantasy novels, this is a given. There will be a guy and there will be a girl and some sort of things related to their background. It's a given now, which was refreshing in the Cruel Prince because the love story is really in the background, so much in the background that it's hardly given any attention to. So I enjoyed that in the Cruel Prince. Then yeah, it was a nice read for me. I enjoyed it, but it could have been a lot better. I just gave it a 3 stars. But I think my standout read for last month was The Night Swim by Megan Goulden. I had it. It was available on Kindle Unlimited, so that was a plus too. And I really enjoyed the podcast style of narration, the story in itself, the protagonist, the characters, everybody. They were really. The story in itself was so moving and thought provoking. It leaves you. It stays in your mind even after you read it, and it's a thriller also. So all these things really, I really enjoyed reading that book. In fact, The Bridge Kingdom, The Cruel Prince, and The Night Swim, they were my best read for January. I enjoyed them the most. There were some other books also I wanted to read, but I couldn't finish them on time. So that was what I have read. That is what I have read so far this year, not including my February TBR, which I will discuss in the next segment. So yeah, then February I have so far read around seven books I think, and I am planning to read 2 more. I wanted to read 3 more, but I don't think so there is time for it, and I'm really heading towards a book slump if I continue reading bad books. So the books that I have read for February so far, Six of Crows. I'm so happy that I finally got to read that book. It has been on my TBR for the longest time, almost 5 years. It was my first Bookstagram made me buy the book. I remember when I first joined Bookstagram in 2018, Six of Crows was everywhere, especially because I think around 2018 it was announced that Shadow and Bone was being adapted into a web series. So, and that Six of Crows, the Crow Club also was introduced in that series, that it'll all be in one series. They'll not have a separate show of their own. It'll just all be in one show. So everybody were very excited and they all wanted to see this coming alive on screen. And so Six of Crows were everywhere, the duology. And so I bought that book in 2015. I got the hardcover edition. So I was finally so happy that I got to read it, because it was also a book club pick. I was anyways going to read it, and it turned out to be a book club pick also, which was exciting because then I got to discuss it with others. And I calmed myself before reading it, because I remember again when I read it for the first time, I was really disappointed. I was like, this is so slow and I'm not able to catch up with this pace. And it turned out only to be in the first 3-4 chapters that the pace was very slow. In fact, part 1 I would say it's divided in 6 parts, and part 1 probably is the slowest. So that's the reason I couldn't read it in the beginning. I was really like, oh my god, did I waste my money again? I was thinking like that, and I was like, will I have to DNF it forever? Because at that time I just kept it aside and hoped to read it again. And I think, having read so many books, I've definitely read around 200 books in the last 5 years. So having read that much actually helped me sit through those first couple of chapters that I was not getting into, and I plowed through. And yeah, the other 5 parts were very exciting. I really enjoyed it, and even though the magic in itself was very less and it's more of a heist drama in a fantasy setting, I enjoyed it. The characters, everybody, it's in a different point of view. Everyone has their point of view, and I enjoyed all the characters. And I have to say, Nina is my favorite. Nina and Matthias are my favorite. And the story in itself was really cool, and everything works. Even though I couldn't visualize a lot of things, but the way the characters speak, everything, all the world building, everything was really cool, and I enjoyed it. I was so glad to have finally read it. Then the next book I read was Wilder Girls. Yeah, Wilder Girls was Wilder Girls was a bit disappointing. There was it felt like a mix between Annihilation and House of Hollows. Three girls, House of Hollows, then an alien territory, Annihilation, and I don't know. I was excited to read it, and I thought it was good. And in many places, it is very airy and very creepy, and it has all that elements that go with horror fantasy, which I've started to like. This is this is my I think the third book that I've read in horror fantasy. Last year, I also read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and it was a short story, so I did not enjoy it as much as I wanted it to. It was creepy and airy again, but because it was so short, I couldn't connect to the characters as I wanted to. But I liked it. House of Hollows remains a favorite so far, and nothing has been able to top it. But I'm hoping to read The Lighthouse Witches and another book by the same author as Wilder Girls, Bury Our Bodies or something like that. I have that book also to read with me. So I hope one of these will be better. And I also read, I keep forgetting that name, The Hollow Places, again by the same author, T. Kingfisher. I read that also last year. Again, it was not as good as House of Hollows, and it was nice but not as good. So I'm continually searching for the same feeling that I got when I was reading House of Hollows. So yeah, Wilder Girls was kind of disappointing, but again I liked that horror fantasy vibe, and I enjoyed it for what it was. I think I gave it a 2.5 stars. The next book I read was Dark and Shallow Lies. Again, it was a Reader's Retreat Book Club book of the month, and that is February book of the month. And I enjoyed it. I did not expect to enjoy it. I had seen it around, and I was not really giving any attention to it. But since it was picked as the book of the month, I decided to read it. And so far, I did enjoy it. It is so esoterical and new age, occult kind of those things based, even though they are not new age, but still. And all those magical systems, the tarot, the runes, the visions, all those things, all those the way it's all dealt with, it's like a different world itself. It's like magical realism, more importantly. I enjoyed it, and it's thriller also. That's really great. So I was able to enjoy it. The ending was also surprisingly different from what I expected. Maybe I expected it, but it was not predictable as such as I thought it would be. Then the next book the next book that I read was They Never Learn, and it was one of the books that was suggested in the vote for book of the month. And when I checked the blurb, I was really intrigued. But when I started reading it, I was like, I'm morally confused as to who to support. Should I support a killer, or should I support someone who is seeking justice, a vigilante? I was really confused. Seeing something like that in a superhero movie is different from reading someone who's actually killing people, even if they're bad. That was kind of morally confusing for me. I was really like, but I enjoyed, not, I wouldn't say enjoyed is the word, but because of the thriller part, I kept reading it, and it was nice and fast paced. The protagonist was a bit irritating, especially it was set in two point of view. So there is Carly and there is Scarlet. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but the Carly part was very irritating for me. Scarlet was more, I preferred her more than Carly. Yet, how much can you support a killer? I was a little confused about that. But as a book, it's written well. The characters are all nice. It's got a really good pace. The moral part aside, I really did like the book as much as I can. Yeah. Then The Little Prince. That is the classic that I read for this month. And I must say I was not very impressed with it. I agree that it's very nice and very, I like why it's so beloved and all that. But again, as I said, short stories, I don't like them so much. I read this because Pride and Prejudice was so long, and I did not want to, and February being a shorter month, I did not want to take so much time to read another classic. So I decided to read The Little Prince, which I also had for the longest time, around 3-4 years. I won it in a giveaway. So I wanted to read it I've been wanting to read it for a long time. So I thought I'll go for it. Again, knowing that it's a short story, I knew I may not like it, and while and the language is always something that I do not enjoy reading in these kind of classics. It's just my preference, that's all. And I think I gave it a 2.5 stars again. Everything is nice. I get the message, I get all the childhood innocence part about growing up, all those things I get, but I couldn't connect to the characters. I couldn't connect, and connecting to a character is very important for me to like the book in some way or the other. So that is that. Then the last book that I read today before filming this video was A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. And again, that book has been on my radar for a very long time. As I said, I've decided to read a lot of epic fantasies, high fantasies this year. And A Wizard of Earthsea was definitely the beginning of that. I have my eyes on Malice, The Legacy of Ash, then the Fiona Ward Tapestry trilogy. I have my eyes on all these books, a lot of them more. Some of them are available on Kindle Unlimited. So, of course, the biggest of them all, Lord of the Rings. I've been wanting to read them for a very long time, but I just don't know when and how I'll do all these books. I feel like there are so many books to read, and it's like as if I'm trying to cram them in all together, and I just lose my motivation to read at all. So that's what is happening currently, but I'm also pacing it in a such a way that I don't end up in a book slump. So far so good, and I'm hoping it continues to go well. I'm also reading currently is The Nature of Witches. It is part of my 12 books by 12 friends challenge, and The Nature of Witches was suggested by one of my bookstore friend, and decided to read it. So far I finished around 140 pages. There is another 100 and 120 pages or so left. I'm hoping to finish it as soon as possible. So far I'm not impressed, and I'm just reading through it. I feel like DNFing it, and I may also do it if I don't enjoy it, but it's a challenge, and I will read through it probably. I'm just quickly reading through it, but the problem is I may end up in a book slump if I continue reading a book that I don't like. But this year one of my other goals was also to DNF books that I don't enjoy. It's hard to do that, especially when you feel like you owe it to yourself to finish what you have started. That is one of the biggest problems of readers, I think. And another book that I'm hoping to finish off before the month end is The Birthday Party. It's a book club pick, and I was not really impressed by the first couple of chapters I read, but yeah, that may be my last read of this month, and that's how it has been for so far. And I'm hoping to make a video of this journal, just a flip through of sort. I'm hoping to make it. I don't know, I may. And yeah, tell me, what have you been reading, and have you read any of the books I've mentioned in this video? What did you think of those books? Please do give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I know I don't put up a lot of videos because it's very difficult. I keep saying it, I'm in awe of the people who always upload videos, and I was thinking of doing a weekly vlog or something like that. I don't know, if I get the time I may do that instead of just uploading once in a while. Maybe a weekly vlog may be more helpful, just a collection of snippets of the things I read and then uploading them. I don't know, it's easier said than done, but I'll try. And yeah, join me on my journey then, and you can also follow me on Instagram, what's on my .bookshelf. You can also join my book club, Readers Retreat Book Club, on Instagram. We are there on Discord also, but we are mostly active on Instagram, I would say. So yeah, I'm going to sign off here, and hope to see you in the comment section. And yeah, stay safe, and take care and enjoy.